I must have heard my mother's voice when I was a tiny baby. Felt her skin on mine when she held me. But I have no memory of her. Nothing. I wonder, what was her voice like? Did she laugh a lot? Did she have a temper? A good sense of humour? Was she interested in fashion? All I have are questions. Tina Wing was her name. Tina Marie Wing. Born in 1960 in Islington, North London. Tina, Mum, Mother, Mummy. I never got to call her any of these. She never heard me speak a word. I wish. So yeah, I never knew my mother. I have a shoebox of photos and documents about her, but nothing about my dad. I'm 32 now, the same age Tina was when she died, when she was murdered, and I was just a year old.
That morning was a normal Sunday morning. It was a school fete. And when I came back, my mum had phoned to say that Tina was missing.
A body had been found in the grounds of Frying Barnet Hospital. She'd been stabbed. It was a kitchen devil knife. I don't think we ever thought it was anything other than a personal attack on Tina Wing. You look close to home, especially with women.
My mum was murdered. My dad went on trial for it and was found not guilty. He denied being anywhere near the scene of the crime. I need to find out what the story was. What happened? So this is the only box and possessions that I have of my mum's, which just has got loads of like pictures, certificates and little nuggets of who she was. But that's it. This is all I have. So this is my mum. This is her with her siblings. And then that's her with my Auntie Leslie, the last surviving sibling.
She was a quiet little sister. She liked reading. She did all of her homework every night. We didn't have TVs, we didn't have computers. Just enjoyed the family stuff we did. We used to chat, but mostly about Jackie magazine. And I remember silly things like we would go round to the shop and buy Cadbury's chocolate, and it was just our thing. We were very happy. We had enough of us and cousins around. Yeah, we did have quite an idyllic family life. She was always smiling.
She was popular, people liked her, because she was always happy, and, you know, and the girls we didn't all mix with, they all liked Tina.
Tina was my best friend. She just thought the world was full of lovely people. If she did misjudge someone and I would point out something to her, she'd say, oh dear, I didn't realise that, and she'd just laugh about it.
It's weird that all of these memories are her being younger than I am now. In my head, she's like 50, 60 years old, and she didn't make it past 32. This is her nursing picture from when she trained to be a nurse, and I believe she was training to be a children's nurse.
I got married when she was 16 and I moved out.
Did you talk a lot about having children?
It was just expected that you would just have children. The whole ethos was, that's what you're going to do. Working in a bank, then you give up work to have a baby.
You're one of the last people really that knew her as a person, and they had the questions that maybe would help me to connect to her a bit more. So stuff like her favourite music, if you can think of anything.
Soul,
really?
yeah. Because we used to go to Tottenham Royal occasionally. She liked reggae. Yeah, and she used to like a boogie. She always liked Kool and the Gang, Celebrations, those kind of like upbeaty songs. She liked Bob Marley.
I remember one memory, when I was around Nan's house, she was looking after me. Remember that old house, and it was that dining room, and then it had a hatch to the kitchen.
Through. Yeah.
And I remember sitting there like with a little tea and a little digestive, and I just remember this big energy person coming through the door, and like, it was Auntie Tina. She had a big light. She gave me extra biscuits that I weren't allowed, and it was, you know, she was good fun, and she would say things like, "Would you like to know a swear word?" Yeah. Smelly socks, don't tell anyone. And then I'd be running around for the rest of the day saying, smelly socks, smelly socks.
I think you very much look like Tina.
You do?
Yeah. You know, when I look at her photos, I think, oh, blimey, that's Daniel.
Yeah. Do you see traits in me where you were like, oh God, that's what Tina was like when she was younger?
Well, I just think you were quiet, happy and smiley. So if I describe Tina, she was quiet, happy and smiley. She knew what she wanted, and she wasn't easily swayed from that. And I think that describes you, Daniel. You know.
I cried a lot actually after speaking to Leslie. Just realisations that I was slowly getting to before the conversation, such as just how much my family went through, really. And it's like, how can I move forward in life if I don't find out answers?
Oh, is your nan and granddad?
Yeah.
Tina, love life. She trusted everybody. She was really naive, actually. She was really innocent in a way. It was nice, but people take advantage, don't they, when you've got somebody like that? I'd say Tina's about 18 there.
Yeah, I think
She's
so.
about 18.
Yeah.
And she was losing weight there as well. She changed. She was much quieter. She seemed very down. That spark wasn't there anymore, you know.
Well, she ended up in hospital, didn't she?
Yeah. She went down to about 5.5 stone.
That's right. Tina developed anorexia, and we couldn't see what had led to it. And a couple of times I'd walked into the bathroom and she was self-harming. And we talked about it, but she never really opened up to me. It wasn't until she was about 23, 6 years later, that she told me that she was raped. At the time, when she was 17, she was told, oh, you've got it wrong. You couldn't have said no. I really do believe that she felt it was her own fault and didn't like herself after that and couldn't cope with that memory. And I think that point is when Tina changed.
After my father was found not guilty of my mum's murder, the police didn't arrest anyone else. I don't know if they looked for anyone else. I need to find out, because nobody's ever been brought to justice for Tina's murder.
So you're looking for answers?
Loads of answers.
Did the police ever contact you?
No.
It's still an open case, or it should be.
Okay, yeah, because I want to talk more about that.
Yeah, sure.
See.
You've got every right to find out what happened to your mum.
Do I? Do
Yeah,
I
of course
actually
you do.
have that?
Yeah, of
I mean,
course
I
you
know
do.
from like a personal perspective, but...
Listen, people will help you.
Okay, how can I go about finding answers?
There'll be records with the police. There'll be records with the coroner's officer. There'll be records because there was a trial at court.
And can I get access to these?
Yeah, the law's changed. So Freedom of Information Act, you write in, they will give you information, they will give you some answers. So I would write to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, and they will send it through to the review teams.
Okay.
I'd feel, God, if that was me, I'd want to know.
Mm-hmm. That makes me feel so much better as well, because it has been a bit.
You're a
like,
victim.
Yeah.
You're a victim of the circumstances, and you've lost so much in the 30 years. Not only just losing your mum, you know, you've lost all those answers, haven't you? You've never had them in the first place.
I haven't got the answers
Well, now's your
yet.
chance to find it.
Dear Sir Mark, I hope this email finds you well, and you don't mind me reaching out. My name is Daniel Wing, and my mum Tina was murdered on the 28th of June, 1992. I hope that you'll be willing to sit down with me to talk about my mum's case. I'm struggling to find anything on my own. Please can you help me along my journey for answers and justice for my mum? Yours sincerely, Daniel Wing.
We stopped using the phrase cold cases. But the challenges are quite clearly the passing of time. But if the evidence is there and it's captured, it's always there. It's just a matter of finding it. And more, forensic science is moving on. The cases are never put away for good if they're unsolved. The police don't want a murderer walking around on the streets.
The first boyfriend I ever knew about was Alan. And she came to me and said, this guy keeps coming around and he's a real creep. She didn't like him and he made her feel uncomfortable. And I was like, well, don't go anywhere near him. Don't answer the door, don't answer the phone. A couple of weeks later, I was talking to her again and said, oh, what's happened with that guy? And she was like, well, he's all right, really. He'd been out a couple of times, etc. They were seeing each other. And then that formed into a relationship.
Did you form an opinion of him?
So I thought he was just thick. He didn't give me the creeps.
Was he loving towards her?
He looked loving towards her. And he seemed supportive. She was happy.
I had no knowledge of Tina Wing or her family circumstances. She was merely a patient at Frying Barnet Hospital, which indicates that she's got problems. But the suspect was known to the hospital. Tina's carers were not encouraging the relationship.
I'm trying to find basically anything I can on my mum. Daily Mirror, 30th of June, 1992, 2 days after the day she died. Sexy Sisters, page 11. Turned on by the postman's knock, page 12. So I found something, really tiny article that basically says, Mum killed at hospital. A murder probe was launched last night after the badly battered body of a young mum was found in the grounds of a psychiatric hospital. It's not much. So that's literally it.
I'd get a call. She was trying to get away from him. Don't want anything to do with him anymore. And she came back to my mum's house. But he wouldn't leave her alone. My dad was always saying, tell him not to call anymore. Wasn't that easy? And he'd come round, knock on the door, and my dad wasn't there. And what I think is that Tina just thought, I can't stop him. It's easier to go back. So she went back.
On the 15th of July 1992, Rachel Nickel died after suffering no fewer than 49 stab wounds. So she was killed 2 weeks after my mum. So the time is really close. There's a lot on here about Rachel, and that's just on the first page of Looking. Nothing about my mum. Yeah, it's really tragic to hear her story, but what made her case stand out so much for her to get so much publicity makes me question why my mum isn't on there.
Right from the outset, it was about the way Rachel Nickel looked. She was a beautiful young woman. She was on Wimbledon Common when she was attacked. It's a expensive, well-heeled, safe part of London. And I have to say this, many of the executives of the Daily Mail and the Daily Express and the Times and the Daily Telegraph probably at that time lived around Wimbledon Common. You know, so, and most of them would have been men going home to their wives who would have been saying, isn't this dreadful? You know, this poor woman, I walk over there, I walk our two Labradors over there every day. It could have happened to me. Had it happened in Hull, I don't think that story would ever have got quite the same impetus.
This one is the Barnet Borough Times, because the national press, there basically wasn't any coverage. So we've gone for the local, July the 2nd, 1992. At 7:30 p.m, 2 members of staff found 32-year-old Tina Wing lying in undergrowth in the grounds of the hospital at Farm Barnet. The staff who discovered the body have automatically been offered counselling. Even the fact that it says that the staff have been offered counselling, that wasn't offered to my family. I'm now starting to understand and starting to really be confused at how my mum has been so let down. How does that happen? How does someone just get forgotten?
The thing that strikes me as being different about violence against women and girls is how pervasive it is. It affects women up and down the country in all walks of their life. Women are subjected to violence, but misogyny is still not a hate crime.
I got a call from the police to say that she had jumped off of the balcony in the first floor flat where they lived. She had fractured her skull. And when I went to the hospital, I asked her about it, and she was like, I couldn't get away from him, he wouldn't let me out. Just wanted to get away.
It sounds like Tina was incredibly failed by a number of agencies. If someone was disclosed abuse and nothing's been done, then that sets up a barrier for them where they have to get into survivor mode and try and work out how they can try and protect themselves.
I can remember as a young police officer, you would go to a call of someone fighting in a premises, and the answer on the radio would be no calls for police action, domestic.
It's not deemed a priority. We have victims calling the police and asking for help, begging for help, for protection, and there isn't anybody who's showing up to that home, taking a statement. Got a phone call from the police saying she'd been hit over the head with a bottle as she came out of work, fractured her skull. Again, I went to the hospital and she was saying, well, I was finishing with him and then he was waiting outside my work and I wouldn't go with him and he did that. So again, she came home. Again, he was phoning, knocking, and again she went back. I just think she was terrified. I think he was controlling her. Now, you would think it was stalking, but it's not the way we were thinking at that time. Suddenly she was engaged and she showed off this, never forget it, like I think it's a garnet, a red engagement ring. And then she was pregnant with Daniel. And it was all quite smooth over that period.
These are funeral cards to my dad and granddad. Tina and I had known each other since we were 6 years old and had been through a lot together. She desperately wanted a baby and kept asking me to have one so we could spend our days together. It's quite nice to have the confirmation that she wanted a baby. It wasn't long ago I just asked my auntie actually if I was a rape child.
She was excited. I know Nanny took her to Holloway Road to buy her a pram and the things she needed.
And was it expected? Or
It was just like, oh, is she? Oh, lovely.
Oh, okay.
She had no trauma in the birth. Alan was with her.
Okay. Was it just Alan?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah. And everything was just ticking along. They'd been living in the flat.
Okay. And like parenting together?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
And
then it was all very full on. And he would always call her Martina, Martina.
this would have been my first home then, I guess. I'd like to hope that there were some happy times for her here. But obviously, I don't think I'll ever know that. This is where my life began, which is bizarre because obviously the life that I know is all just with my nan.
Hello, Dean. Hello, Dean. Oh, look. Daniel was always a very easy baby. He was always cute. And we just kind of scooped him up. Initially, my mum took care of Daniel. And then when Tina was murdered, we'd kind of share it. I had 2 children at the time. When I was at work and at uni, my mum would have mine and Daniel. He just went with the flow. He had lots of cousins, so he didn't miss not having siblings. He was always surrounded by love. We all sport him.
I always kind of thought the normal was close-knit families. The older I've got, I've realised actually how everyone kind of made the effort. And I think that especially was really to kind of support Nan.
I saw Nan very scared and worried and on a mission to look after you.
Yeah.
After
I know, it's
what happened,
yeah.
it makes sense why they
100%.
wanted to watch out for you.
Dear Mr. Wing, I'm writing to you in relation to your recent Freedom of Information application in relation to the murder of your mother in 1992. You are issued a refusal.
I've made several Freedom of Information requests regarding the death of my mum. They were all turned down, but the police did offer me a private meeting, something they'd called privileged disclosure.
The information provided is for you and you alone.
They said they'd be able to tell me some things about my mum's case.
To release such information would run significant risk of undermining any future proceedings.
Well, I guess that's what they're saying, that it is potentially still open, and I guess that could change everything. It gives a tiny glimmer of hope that they might actually be able to set my mum free and set my family free.
It sounds as if they're certainly going to review the case and see if there's any further evidence. That's really positive.
The main thing I want to find out is the case still open?
The laws change since 1992, so if new additional evidence comes out, even against a person that's been tried and acquitted, they can be taken before the court again. They may resubmit all of the exhibits again or the findings on the exhibits and pinpoint exactly what happened on the day.
What are the main questions from your advice?
Has the case been reviewed? Are you re-investigating it? Is the physical evidence still in existence? Is the forensic evidence still in existence? Who are the suspects? Is my dad a suspect?
We got a phone call from Edmonton Police to say that my sister had been found walking through the street barefoot. It was, I think, in the winter, with just a nightie on and no baby. They're taken her back to the police station, and Alan told them that she had set light to the cot. She just said she didn't, and she was put on remand in Holloway. We believe that she had postnatal depression at the time and didn't really know what was going on. But she wasn't a smoker. She didn't have matches. You know, it just didn't add up. But I do have guilt about that we didn't do anything. I think I'm a stronger person now, and I know a bit more. But we were a very sheltered family. Nothing happened in our family. We didn't have dealings with the police. You know, everything was just lovely. Tina was put in Holloway on remand in the hospital. They have a prison hospital ward.
Oh, okay.
So she was put in there. I went to visit her every day.
And what was she like?
Dazed. She didn't know what was going on. She was frightened.
Yeah.
She was scared of being in there. Also, like, after a couple of weeks, like, she'd grown like a beard. Like a dark beard. So you could tell she obviously had a hormone imbalance, not a brain imbalance.
Right.
And someone's assessed her and put her in Fram Barnet for treatment. She was on the locked ward. It's a horrendous place. You walk down these dark Victorian corridors. Absolutely frightening, and I don't get frightened very easy, but, you know, I just could imagine having to be there all the time. She hated it there. Absolutely hated it. But she was getting some kind of counselling. She was also having some kind of hormone treatment to regulate her hormones. And, like, the hair on her face wasn't growing anymore. So we saw that over time, could see her getting better. Then she started talking about, I'm going to finish with Alan. And I was there when she was telling the staff, I don't want any visits from Alan. I don't want him to come in here anymore. I'm going to focus on Daniel. He can't put up with what I put up with. That can't happen.
Oh. I definitely am starting to see me in her, which I never saw. Sorry, should I show you this?
Yes.
So, wait, what side is she? Can you see it? Or?
Yeah.
I always think it's that side of my face that looks more like her. So it's the 28th of June, 2024, and it's the anniversary of my mum's death. 32 years. She was killed on this day. The word mum was just a word to me. I'm getting to know her, and in the back of my mind, it feels like I'm going to meet her. But at the end of it, I keep coming back to the understanding that that's not going to happen. It's like another layer of grief. And on top of that, I don't know how to accept the reason she's not here was because she was killed, and choice was taken away from her.
On the morning that she was murdered, the hospital told us retrospectively that Alan had phoned in and said, I want to see Tina. And they said, oh no, she's been allowed out in the grounds today for the first time.
She had a key and she went off. She was in the course of being put back into the community.
So my mum had phoned to say that Tina was missing. So I went straight round to my mum's. When we were there, Alan kept phoning, saying, oh, Tina's missing, Tina's missing. Martina. I hope a monster hasn't got hold of her in the grounds.
From where it happened, it was scrubland.
She had been found, and it was an accidental find. Someone had gone out to put something in the bin. Nobody looked for her when she was missing. Nobody looked for her. Not even the hospital.
The body was taken to the mortuary and it was established cause of death was strangulation and stab wounds. It was later found that part of the knife was lodged in the spine.
I was asked to identify her. My mum and dad didn't feel able that they could do that. I wasn't prepared. The last memory of my sister is her having this grey, itchy blanket on her. And all I kept saying was, like, you could have put her in a nice, clean white sheet, because she looked so uncomfortable and itchy, and it was bad enough going there when we couldn't, go in or touch her or anything. That, it was hard at the time to see that.
There's a large degree of force been used, and you can draw the conclusion from that it was personal.
There's evidence of overkill, which is to say gratuitous or excessive violence far beyond that which is necessary to cause death, in 55% of cases in which women are murdered. We see overkill in cases where the murderer is a stranger, as well as in cases where the murderer is known to their victim.
Did you get the opportunity to grieve my mum? Your sister?
Not really. Because I was too busy. With life, making sure everything's all right for everyone.
Being a mum?
But this process, I think, maybe that's why I'm not feeling very well. I think this process has made me grieve for the first time.
I think a lot of this has been about let's protect Daniel, and I think because
Absolutely,
of that,
all of it.
I'm sorry that you had to lose your sister the way you did. I'm sorry the impact that that's had on your life. I really hope we can grieve my mum together and not just grieve her, but celebrate who she was outside of how she was killed.
A lot of things I'd forgotten, but have resurfaced now. But you were safe. We did all right. We got through it. It was all in a box.
I'm going to visit the police for my privilege disclosure. It's really important that I find out what's happening and what the status of my mum's case is. What does an unsolved case mean? Can we reopen it? I feel like it needs to be reopened. No, you can't just forget about my mum's death and my mum's murder. The thing is, there's still a murderer out there and has been for 32 years.
We don't have anybody who's been held to account for Tina's death, which means that we have a perpetrator in our community. That's really disturbing.
I think the first step to solving any problem is identifying that there is one. It's absolutely vital that we pay more attention to the scope and scale of violence against women. When Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, he was told that making misogyny a hate crime would overload the police, which leads to the irresistible conclusion that violence against women and girls is such a serious problem that it's impossible to do anything about it. I absolutely refuse to accept that.
What concerns me even more so is that it's taken Daniel to go on this journey to understand his mother's death, to request a review.
I think it was quite positive. I felt very nervous, but it's just quite interesting to hear something more official.
What actions are they going to take? No.
So they said that the first step of what they're going to do is try and get the evidence together. They don't know what evidence they've got. They need to look for it, see what's still available, and then they'll assess that to see if the results are new and compelling. And he said that was really important. it's a really positive thing that actually they are going to start this process. This is something a week ago I didn't even know would be available, let alone the whole of my life. I'm feeling extremely positive.
I was wobbly at the beginning of this process, thinking I'm not doing it. But now I feel like Tina's got more of a voice, and that actually we're being empowered to say the things that we couldn't say because authorities weren't following their own processes or weren't kind enough.
When I was trying to do my own research about 10 years ago, the few bits of information I found said Tina Wing was murdered in the grounds of Friar Barnet Psychiatric Hospital. Her boyfriend was tried for her murder, but acquitted. How has this woman just been left on the grounds of Friar Barnet? How has no one been made responsible for it?
I don't need answers. I just would like to close the box on, right, that was the DNA, and now it's back in the box.
The murder happened to Tina. It was like throwing a pebble in a pond. It rippled out. And my family, it rippled out. And over the years, I saw what it did to my mum.
Her walk was supposed to have been for 1 hour only, but she never returned.
She couldn't get over what happened to Tina because of how it happened.
Resulting in the knife breaking in 3 places. She had also been strangled. Tina Wing's boyfriend was acquitted after it was heard that there was no evidence against him, only suspicion.
Her final moments must have been so awful. She must have been so scared. And so for me, I grew up with seeing this pain, and there's no justice.
I'm so sorry, darling. I'm so sorry.
I would want to know how my mother lived, and unfortunately how she died.
She'd be so proud of you.
And by whom? And that's a tough one, because the suspect happens to be his dad.